Hey everyone. Today I want to answer that question of whether or not you can get away with just YouTube for photography, or you still need to go to school for formal training in order to be a full-time creative. So let's go over some pros and cons and get into it. Now, whether you go to school or you're just a YouTube student like I was, you need to do self-assignments. Doesn't matter whether or not you're being told them or you're putting them on yourself. You need to assign yourself different challenges for your photography so that you can push yourself and keep growing. You can quickly learn Flash if that's the first thing you want to get into, or you can go towards landscape or whatever it is that you want to shoot. You can just focus on shooting that. Whereas when you're going through the education system, there is a very strict, you have to learn how to do this, you have to learn how to do this, you have to learn how to do this, which may not be very useful for some people, whereas it may be extremely useful for others that aren't as motivated to do it themselves. So whether you're told to do it or whether you go out and do it yourself, you still need to do those assignments. Whether or not you're learning all these assignments, intuition still can't really be taught. When you look at millions and millions of photos over decades of work, you can hone yourself into understanding what works and what doesn't usually, and you can maybe inform your taste a little bit better and tell yourself what does work and what doesn't work in the world in which we're living. But your personal vision and what you feel is right, or when you look at an image, you're like, oh, that's the one. That intuition is not something you can really teach. It's just something that happens over time, or some very lucky few are born with it. But for the most part, it comes from obsession. It comes from doing it over and over and over and over again, until you get to this point where you just, it's a feeling. It's not something that you can really necessarily be taught. So whether you're self-assigning or not, you have to just put those hours in and put the shots in for you to develop this intuition that you can't, like I said, it can't be taught, but it can be learned. It happens intrinsically in your body so that you can grow as a photographer. Some of my peers that are in beginner photography classes are honestly learning things at the same level as I am sometimes. I've gotten to a point where I've shared some stuff with my photography colleagues that are in formal education systems, and they've been like, oh yeah, I learned that in Photo 1. Or they'll be really impressed with something that I just knew, I've never really even learned. But yeah, vice versa as well. Sometimes I'm just learning things that apparently are very beginner, but it's just not the hierarchy at which I wanted to learn them, so that's where I am learning them. The point is, keep shooting, keep learning, keep growing, whether you're in school or not. It's kind of like being a doctor. You're always looking at the trends, you're always looking at new techniques or trying to develop something as a photographer. I think that's the beauty of it. There's never like this plateau goal which we can get to. It's just the pursuit of always getting better. And that's really exciting because where will I be next year? What will I be able to look back at my work at and be like, oh, that's wrong. Maybe not wrong, but at the very least, I wouldn't reshoot it the same way, and I think I'm growing as a photographer when I look back at old work, and I'm going to feel like that looking back at the work from today. So I think whether or not you're in school or not, you just have to put yourself in that mentality of always learning, always growing. Is it worth it to just do YouTube? Are you able to be a full-time professional even without that formal education training? Do I send out CVs or resumes that say that I have a degree in biopharmaceutical science instead of biophotography science? I don't. So I don't think it really has ever hindered me as a photographer in order to not have that education. But there is one very key thing that being in school gives you that being alone at your desk watching YouTube videos doesn't, is this connection. The proximity to all of your teachers and your classmates and your classmates' family and relatives and people beyond them, and it just opens your world up to thousands and thousands of new people and new prospective clients, if you want to think of it that way. You're going to grow as a photographer, you're going to grow as a human being, and so will everyone around us. When they're 45, they might be CEOs of this massive company, and by then you might also be a pretty big established photographer, and they might have some work for you. And sure, it's kind of a long run to think 20 years down the line, I might make a connection with this person. But I think it is, it's like being in school, you're fed all of these opportunities of connecting with people, and you know, you're forced into this physical room together, and you all have very similar hobbies and you're probably very similar people. So it makes sense to just befriend these people and befriend them as a way to, you know, grow your network, maybe be better as a photographer, and at the very least, try to grow your business. I feel like I have everything in my favor, so to speak, and it's still hard. So you just want to be able to put all of those advantages, you want to stack all of your advantages as much as you can. You know, I'm a healthy, white, Canadian young man with supportive parents and friends, and I still struggle. You know, I'm still worrying about whether or not I'm going to make it, or I still have sleepless nights whether or not what I've been deciding these last 10 years was worth it. But I think it is. When I look back at the way I'm living and the life I get to live, and where it seems to be going, I'm very proud of it, and I'm very happy that I've stuck to it, and I'm excited to keep sticking to it, because it just means that I'm going to keep meeting new people and growing my network and just being able to expand my photography. It's gotten me to go to Japan and go to Europe and travel the world, and it's gotten me to meet people from all walks of life, and I've been able to grow as a human being by having conversations with these people. So I think the life around photography, whether you went to school or not, like, it doesn't matter what your upbringing was. It doesn't matter what your background was. If you're willing to stick to photography, it will give you back so much. It's hard because there's no blueprint, and there's no, like, it has to be this, and after you've achieved this, then it's all going to be like that, and then after you've achieved that, well, then it's not like that. There's no rose-colored glasses. Every day is different. Every day is like a potential opportunity, or, you know, for good or bad. I think being a photographer, whether or not you went to school, is so much more about the outcome than it is how you got there. So if you're willing to put the hours in, then you probably don't need to go to school. And if you did go to school, don't feel bad about it, because you made a whole lot of connections that you wouldn't have made if you were just at your home on YouTube. It's not that you can't do both, but, you know, if it's one or the other. Building that career around photography, around a hobby, around something that, you know, most people just like to do, to make a career out of that, still very, very difficult. You have to take a lot of photos to be a full-time creative, trust me. A lot more than I ever imagined. Maybe at a certain point, you can get away with, you know, being like Arnold Schwarzenegger in, what was it, I'll Be Back. What's the movie? Terminator. If you think back to Arnold in Terminator, he has, like, I think that's the record for the most money made for the least amount of words said or something as an actor. Maybe you can get to that point in your photography where you take 3 photos that year and you made $500,000 and you only shoot for Nike or whatever it is. But until then, we're gonna be shooting a lot, and those are all opportunities to grow and to get better at it. So whether you went to school, whether you're just learning it on YouTube, the practice of actually shooting is what's going to make you a better photographer. Not learning about it, not sitting, learning about art history, but shooting and doing it over and doing it over again and obsessing over it and being like, why isn't my work perfect? Or, you know, just trying to always outdo yourself. That's what's going to make you a better photographer. And that's what's way more important than going to school or not. Anyway, thanks for listening to me rant this week. Maybe leave a like on your way out, and I'll see you later.